Today on Cryptic Mass Guitar, we do a high gain off between the Marshall JCM 900 4100. This is not a reissue, it's a 90s version with the L34s, and the Paul Reed Smith Mark Tremonti MT100 head. So what is a high gain off? I'll flash it up on the screen while I explain it to you. Should also give the people who don't like the JCM 900, 4100, whatever time they need to type in. The JCM 900 sounds solid state. It's built like it has a distortion pedal built into it, and we'll talk about diodes. That's just normal comments for a JCM 900 video, but a high gain off I have set to 4 different sections. Section number 1, like everything's A-B'd here, but section number 1 is both amps with 4 different cabinets and 4 different speaker types. Section 2 is what I used to call a high gain shootout. So we have 3 different sound samples. 2 of them have leads. The first one is TS9 boosted with a KH95 on the lead. Second one, no boost, and the TS9 actually comes in a boost for the lead. And number 3 is both amps with their matching speaker types. Section 3 is both amps blended, so the JCM 900 hard pan left, the MT100 hard pan right. Then the final one, section 4, is both amps played with similar settings. So we'll start off with section number 1, that is both amps being played, A-B'd, and then of course we're going to be listening to 4 different cabinets with 4 different speaker types in it. This is nice because you can actually hear strengths and weaknesses when it comes to the combination of each head with each speaker. Section number 2, like I said earlier, is 3 different sound samples. They're longer sound samples. First 2 have leads. I'll show you on the screen what's coming up. And then the third sound sample there is both amps with their matching speakers. So the speaker they were designed for. So when it comes to the JCM 900, that can be up for debate. A lot of like Marshall heads can be up for debate on which speaker it was designed for. The JCM 900 cabinets were mostly loaded with G12T75, so I used that. And then the MT100 was designed for a vintage 30, so I have a ENGL XXL cabinet that has vintage 30s in it. On to section 4, and this is really where, if you haven't heard before, this is really where you're going to be able to tell the differences between the gain types, like the amount of gain that's built into each, and then, of course, the way that the EQs work. So you look out for the amount of high, mid, and high end on the JCM 900 and the lack of gain in comparison to the MT100, which there's a lot of low end and low mid focus on it. It can't get the high end that the JCM 900 can, but it's a lot more balanced and there's a whole heck of a lot more gain. Alright, so there you go. There are all of the different sound samples for this high gain off, so it should give you, a lot of different combinations on speaker types, different settings, but of course it's with my hands and the settings that I chose at the time, which I just thought were good. Worked for me at the time for what I was going for. Generally, when I do these type of shootouts, if I do these over like 2 days generally. But if I did the exact same shootout over the next 2 days, it'll probably sound completely different. It's just what I, think works for me at the time, and I change my mind a lot, and I change my settings a lot. But at this point in the video, where I do like to talk about my thoughts on both of the amps here, and over the years, I've found that the JCM 900, personally for me, has been this secret weapon. And there's been a lot of times where people are surprised at how a JCM 900 can sound from, their experiences or playing it here or, listening to it through these videos or whatever. And it's kind of my thought, it could be very wrong, but a lot of people when they go out and buy 100-watt heads, a lot of people are actually playing them in their bedrooms. There's nothing wrong with that. But the thing to keep in mind when you're playing a 100-watt amp in your bedroom, unless you're ready to go deaf, is that if you're playing at bedroom levels, so if your volume level is down, then your EQ is actually going to raise. So you're going to have your EQ skewed a lot higher than you normally would. Because what happens with tube amps is when you start to actually crank the volume or raise the volume, your EQ sort of shifts towards the middle, and then your low end control starts to actually dip underneath noon, and that's kind of because your amp is kind of, the tubes are warming up a lot more, and your amp it's able to breathe. So what I've found over the years of the JCM 900 is people have been playing it at bedroom levels, and that's how they're judging it. That doesn't mean that it's not designed to where people can say that it's sort of like it's a solid state amp. It definitely isn't. However, the EQ for the JCM 900 has always been, or the 4100 at least, has always been skewed on the high mids and the high end. Whereas a JCM 800 is just the master of just pure mids. It's not like high-end focus, it's not low-end focus, it's just all mids. It's the master of all mids. So if you're comparing one to the other, then it can be natural to want to go to the 800 over the 900 just because of the way that the mids are, laid out. So I can kind of understand that because of the way that the mids and the high end are on it. It's hard to really dial it out and still have that, good sounding amp. That's the wrong way to say it, but a lot of people will try to, bring the gain up quite a bit to try to get a little bit of saturation in it. And in order to try and get that, it's only natural to try bringing up the high end. And that's kind of one of those things where it kind of works and it kind of doesn't. But for me, it's been a secret weapon over the years to blend with other amps, because the JCM 900, if you're going for like a darker tone, but you want something that's not going to get lost in a blend, and it's going to stand out in a blend, the JCM 900 is generally the amp that I'm going to grab. So something that has a lot of gain to it, I would pair it with the JCM 900 because there's not a ton of gain and there's still that clarity. And because of the way that the mids work, they'll still peek through quite a bit and they won't get lost in the mix. The MT100 itself, so when you're listening from one to the next, if you are liking the sound of the 900, then going to the MT100 can be a little tricky, because a lot of people, when they listen AB, like if they AB an amp, a lot of people, it's only natural to kind of prefer the one that has a little more high end and high mid compared to the next one. So whichever one has a little more high end and high mid, that's generally where a lot of people will go like, I like that sound. You can hear it a little more. But the MT100, again, has a lot more gain, and the EQs are a little more balanced than the JCM 900. So you can get different tones and different sounds out of the MT100, where the JCM 900's strengths are really with blending with other amps and still retaining that clarity. And I do think it is a little criminal that I did not touch on the channel 2, the overdrive channel, because I've said this in other videos, and I really think this rings true, because most people don't know what a JCM 800 sounds like. But the overdrive channel on the MT100, if you dime the gain and throw a boost on top, that is exactly what most people think a JCM 800 sounds like. So the fact that this has those 3 channels and that overdrive channel really works that way, for a lot of people will make the MT100 stand out as a better choice as like a primary or a main amp. Whereas, again, for me, the JCM 900 works best in a blend. But that's all I have to say. What are your thoughts on both of these amps? Do you own either of them? Do you aspire to own either of them? Or are they both just not on your list whatsoever? Thanks for watching.